Andrew Toy here. Thank you for clicking on my video. I'm going to talk about something a little different today than I normally talk about. If you don't know, I'm normally talking about movies, but today I want to take a little bit of a detour. I'm seeing so much talk online about the satanic rituals of the Olympic Games. Last week, the Winter Olympics kicked off with our opening ceremony. I just want to take us all to Twitter just to see what people are talking about, and then I want to share what I think about some of this stuff. First one I want to look at is Lazy B. She says, the Olympic Games is now just one big perverted satanic ritual. Pale Horse of the Apocalypse, which I believe was the big thing in the Summer Olympics 2 years ago. The Ball Demon, the Voyager, Lucifer, Headless Angels, Headless Women, Women in Chains, Giant Baby with Death Hood, Industrial Dark Ceremony, Apocalypse, Disaster Scenes. Let's check out John Robb, who says, it really doesn't get any more in your face than this. As if you need more proof that the world is run by Satan and his minions. This doesn't look like the Winter Olympics. It looks like a scene from hell. If this looks like a scene from hell, it looks like a pretty place. You know, when I think of hell, I think more of like the dead swamps in Middle Earth. Okay, this is a good one. Orthodoxy above the clouds, satanic symbolism at the Olympics. When will we overthrow the rule of pedophiles and Satanists? Never. I don't think that's ever going to happen. At least I'm not going to. And this Orthodox above the clouds is likely not going to. The Israelites couldn't keep them down in Egypt. After Rome fell, the pedophiles still rose up from the ashes. And we're not going to be able to do anything against the elite that we are facing. Coffee and Grit says there is absolutely no reason to watch the Olympics. They trashed the Last Supper at the Summer Olympics. They opened this year with something that looks straight up satanic. So this guy's not even very clear of what that something is. It just looks satanic because it's red and yellow and orange. And may I remind you that Satan he's the master of disguises. I don't think he's going to be this blunt, this obvious. And even if he is, if he's overseeing the entire Winter Olympic Games, how come there haven't been more beheadings? Where's all the blood splattered all over the snow? Where's all the screaming and the howling? People have a very tame view of Satan, I believe. If Satan were really running these Winter Olympics, there would be a heck of a lot more bloodshed all over those slopes. There would be no winners. There would be no losers because there would be no survivors. I'm not trying to be all pastoral, but I want to draw your attention to 2 Timothy, talking about the end days before Jesus returns, which I've always taken a lot of comfort from this verse. It says, but evil men and impostors will go from bad to worse, deceiving and being deceived. Another version says, but mark this, there will be terrible times in the last days. But evil men and seducers shall wax worse and worse, deceiving and being deceived. And then in Luke, Jesus notes that while the world may face increasingly difficult times, these are signs that the kingdom of God is near. If those verses don't sound like the world we are living in today, then you're completely out of your mind. We all know about the island. We all know about the corruption in DC and look at Russia, look at everywhere. The thing too is that none of this is new. I think we have these goggles on that the past was just this bright, shimmery 50s diner aesthetic. Everything was just pure and pristine. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that when I review the Song of the South in my next video. Make sure you subscribe so you can hear what I have to say about that if you're interested. But we think that things are getting worse and worse and worse. No, I think things have always been this bad. I just think that with the aid of social media and the internet, it's harder to hide things. And I also do think that there's an element of the perverse leaders who aren't that interested in hiding things anymore because they want to make their lifestyles, their amoralistic views and ways of living be normalized. But I'm looking at all these tweets and so many people are just saying, we need to take down the regime. We need to, storm the islands and whatnot. And my heart is all in that. 100%. I am so on board, but that's not my job. And I'm not saying that as a pacifist. I'm saying that as somebody who knows that Jesus is going to be returning. He's going to be the one to take care of it. Whatever is in my ability to do to take revenge on these people, it would be like holding their hand over a match compared to what Jesus is going to do when all the blood rises up past his knees in the end days. It's going to be nasty. It's going to be brutal, but it's also going to be sad. We forget that these are souls. These are souls that are completely lost to the devil. And we're still attacking the humans. That's not what Jesus tells us to do. Our enemies are the dark forces, the demonic nature, not the people. It's the people who have been deceived. who have succumbed to their temptations. We should be praying for them. We should be praying for our leaders, for God to somehow intercede. But if that doesn't happen and things continually get worse, great. That's awesome. It's so sad that there's going to be victims and people getting hurt and tortured and murdered and molested. It's horrible. But at least that time of suffering is closing tighter and tighter and tighter. And I think before we know it, Jesus is going to be here. It might not even be in our lifetime. But no matter how you look at it, if you are looking to Jesus as the one to redeem everything and not Trump or Biden or whoever, then there's no way we can lose. There's no losing in this. And there's so much money in these things that 500,000 people tuning out of the Olympics is not going to make a dent. They're not even going to bat an eye. They're probably not even going to notice. So all the boycotting that everybody's talking about, boycott the Super Bowl, boycott Disney, boycott the Olympics. The only thing I think of when I hear all these Christians boycotting everything is, did Jesus boycott us? He could have. He could have just become a deistic figure, turned his back on us and created a whole different galaxy. But no, he chose to not only tune into this world, but to actually enter into it and to break bread with his enemies. That's pretty crazy stuff. So what are we doing? Why are we so high and mighty in stating that this is bad, but I am good because of my precious light? I'm not going to intercede in these dark holes, these dark places, which is what those dark places need. They need the Christians. They need the people with the light to go in and illuminate. A couple of years ago, I had open heart surgery. Spoiler alert, I survived the surgery. But the night before, or the nights leading up to it, I had like a 30% chance of surviving. And I talked to one of the pastors at my church. And even as a Christian, like, you want to know that you're going to be okay after you die. Trust me, when you get to that point, like, I wasn't afraid to die, but I just wanted to make sure I was going to die right. Getting right with God. And so I asked him, I asked him, how do I know that I'm right with God? Because that's the difficulty is, like, with salvation, we aren't required to do anything. It's all dependent upon God and his work and his hand on our lives. And so you go into death or facing the possibility of death, feeling like, oh, I've done nothing to secure myself. And that's exactly the truth. We cannot do anything to secure ourselves. But I asked my pastor, how do I know I'm going to be all right when I stand before God? And he brought up the story of the Pharisee who's praying, don't allow me to become like these dirty tax collectors. I don't want to be like the peasants, the losers, the sinners. So thank you, God, for making me high and mighty like yourself. And this might have been a parable. I think it was a parable. And then you have the tax collector. He's praying and he's saying, I am a horrible, deceived, wicked, terrible person. I am messed up. I've cheated people out of their money. I have stolen. I have done all these horrible things. So God, I ask you to take pity on me, to show me mercy. And it's that difference of how you view things. Do you view the elite as worse than you, as scum? They may be, by human definitions, by human standards, but it depends also on how you view yourself. I'm worse than a lot of those guys. I've done horrible things. Maybe I haven't broken the same laws or done the same things, but I'm just as guilty of doing bad things. And so when your time is up and you're standing before God, you're not going to be telling God all the bad things President Trump did. And you're also not going to be trying to defend Trump. All you can do is account for yourself. Instead of saying, I'm going to boycott all this stuff, I'm going to, look at showing all the faces of the people that are on the Epstein list who should be prosecuted and condemned and thrown into jail. Instead of saying, oh, these guys are slime balls and I'm this great person who never touched a child in his life. Like, it's great that you haven't done that, but you've done all these other things. So nobody's better than anybody else. And if the opening ceremonies of the Winter Olympics were satanic, cool. Bring it on. Let's get all the hard stuff over with. Let's just plunge in, hold on to Jesus, and know he's going to come and redeem us. Let's hold on for dear life. And before we know it, it's going to be over. I don't want it to be another 100,000 years. I want it to be now. And we all know, like, Satan is the prince of the world. Like, that's kind of his job, is to make himself known to the susceptible. So I watched the Winter Olympics, and I don't think, I'm not bowing down to Satan by doing that. But perhaps the person who would be seduced by Satan should not be watching the Olympics. I don't know. I'm not even saying that the Olympics are satanic. I'm just saying, like, we draw such hard lines between good and bad, and we always place ourselves on the good side, and everybody else is bad. Same with politics. You know, you draw the line, Democrat, Republican. Republicans can never mess up. Trump can never mess up. Obama was God incarnate. Biden was the Messiah. Like, he never did anything wrong. Yeah, whoever your leader is, whoever the leader of your tribe is, has messed up. I told my wife today, I said, when I see a politician admit wrongdoing, to say, hey, I messed up, I did this, I did, or made a mistake, but he admits it instead of putting it on the other guys, that's the guy I'm voting for. Because that shows character and humility. And that's what I want in a leader. I'm sorry. This was not at all like movie related. But if you want to talk about movies, be sure to check out my Cool Runnings video. I put that out the day the Olympics opened up. There's nothing satanic about that movie, even though it did come from the House of Mouse. Cool Runnings is still as good today as it was yesterday. So be sure to check that out. Let me know what you think. What do you think about the ceremonies? What do you think about just everything that's happening? All this, like the Epstein files, everything that's just being dumped on us like a gallon of Gatorade. I'd love to have a discussion, have a friendly debate, and I will see you in the next video. And there's nothing satanic about that movie, even though it did come from the House of Mouth.